Did you guys have any idea that Doritos were created because some workers at Disneyland in the 60s said, let's make a buck off of these stale chips? I had no idea. We'll get to that story in a second, but first, our top story in episode 70 of Inside 300 has to do with a very familiar franchise potentially making its way into Epic Universe, Universal's third park down in Orlando. I'm your host, Brian Perry. Episode 70 has already begun, so let's start the clock. The very first permits have been filed for projects within Universal's upcoming Epic Universe theme park. Originally shared by Alicia Stella on Twitter, the permits are believed to be for a Harry Potter themed area that would be built within the brand new park. Of course, both the original Universal Park down in Orlando and Islands of Adventure already have their Harry Potter sections, which would mean the resort plans on having a wizard presence in all three of its theme parks. Not much is known about Epic Universe as we speak. Nintendo, DreamWorks, and of course Harry Potter are heavily rumored to be the anchors within the new property. Current whispers state that the new expansion of the resort should open around 2025 or 2026. Alright, fun story about one of the world's most popular snacks and its ties to the Walt Disney Company. Did you know that Doritos, the now famous nacho cheese chip that dominates Super Bowl commercials and 7-Elevens worldwide, originated in Disneyland back in the 1960s? The original product was created at the Casa de Fritos dining location, located within Frontierland. Now standing in its place is the Mexican Rancho del Zocalo restaurant, but we go back to the Casa de Fritos in the 1960s to discover the history of the famous Dorito. Less than a year after the opening of Disneyland, the Frito-Lay snack company opened its own restaurant within Frontierland. Casa de Fritos got their tortillas from a small local tortilla factory titled Alex Foods. This is important because one day a salesman from Alex Foods noticed that the restaurant was dumping their stale tortillas in the trash and advised on simply cutting them up and frying them instead. Restaurant workers would follow his advice and add basic seasoning to essentially create a new dry chip item within the Disney park. In 1964, the vice president of marketing at Frito-Lay at the time, Arch West, discovered the new menu item on a visit to the happiest place on earth and quickly contacted Alex Foods to make a deal to produce the chips regionally. Less than 2 years later, Doritos were released nationwide, becoming the country's first nationally launched tortilla chip. The now infamous nacho cheese flavor would be added in 1972, and over 65 years later, Doritos and Disney seem to be doing pretty well for themselves, but it's all thanks to a random salesman who said, hey, don't just throw away those stale chips, let's make a buck off of them. After nearly 2 years of closure due to the pandemic, the often overlooked and sometimes forgotten Curious George Goes to Town portion of Universal Studios Florida is back and open for business. The area found near E.T. and the now removed Day in the Park with Barney is a fun, underappreciated playground filled with pumps and hoses where kids can play with water. Right next door is the Man with the Yellow Hat's Ball Factory, where guests can throw, blast, and launch thousands of soft foam balls in an enclosed building. If you've been yearning to watch Walt Disney Animation's 60th film Encanto, but don't want to spend the money to go to the theater, we have an official release date for when the new film will debut on Disney+. Unlike previous films from 2021 that required premiere access and an extra $30 on top of your Disney Plus subscription, Encanto will be free for subscribers beginning on, drumroll please, Christmas Eve, December 24th. So far, Encanto has proven to be a hit with both critics and audiences alike, with both scores hovering in the low 90s on Rotten Tomatoes. According to third-party researchers Samba TV, Disney's new Hawkeye show, which premiered on Disney Plus last week, garnered the lowest viewership for a show's premiere in MCU history. Now, this information only includes the 4 Marvel shows to release on Disney+, and this graph compares the success of each within its first week. WandaVision's viewership of 1.6 million US households is just slightly ahead of the reported 1.5 that tuned into Hawkeye within the show's first 5 days. Loki dominates the list with a viewer total of 2.6 million households, while the other MCU show to come out this year, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is sandwiched in the middle with a 1.8 number. That's it for episode 70. If you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe, click that bell icon. This way you're notified every time we come out with brand new content. I've been your host, Brian Perry, and as always,
bye-bye.